in organizing the first Asian Art Biennale, but I was the man in the Foreign Ministry as Director General who was reaching out to all our embassies abroad, cracking the whip on them and getting them to get participation from countries all over Asia in that Asian Art Biennale. And our whole exercise again at that time was, how do we get people interested in Bangladeshi art? So as I then moved abroad, one of the artists I took a special fancy to was Rashid Chowdhury and his tapestries. My only sort of regret is that I didn't buy more of him, because we weren't to know that he would die relatively young. But he did create a few disciples, and I did see one of them in the audience, Tajul, and I'm now a great collector of Tajul's work. So this is not a medium which is all that well known, tapestries, but I think this is again something we can take great pride in. The other aspect of Bangladeshi art, and indeed my own interest, was the presence of several artists, and Munir and Kali being two of them. There was Shahabuddin, of course, artists who, in a sense, spanned Bangladesh, but abroad. So you had Shahabuddin in Paris, and I was a great admirer and supporter, and as I was of Munir's, and indeed I've had the privilege of visiting both of them in their studios, in the case of Munir in Madrid, in the case of Shahabuddin in Paris. And I saw that also as something quite inspirational. I've been collecting ever since. The collection has grown. One of my, again, favorites, and indeed, not only as an artist, but as a person, was the late Mr. Kibria, in some ways, the guru of many artists here in Bangladesh. And my big advantage in the case of Mr. Kibria, because many of you will remember, he was quite an introverted person. So to go and see him at home and talk to him and actually persuade him, as I did. I mean, my Kibrias were bought from Mr. Kibria, not from any gallery. And it took several visits, first to persuade him to show the paintings he had at home, and then even more difficult to persuade him to part with them, because he saw them as sort of a part of him, and he imposed one very strict condition. He said, all right, these are, I'm telling you, my favorite paintings from my own collection, but you must never part with them. And the reason I was able to establish this rapport with Mr. Kibria was that our sons were in school together and were great friends. So that sometimes helped. So getting to know my artist friends became also a part of the collecting process. And I can say with enormous pleasure that they've become good friends. I see them often, and I try and help them. I mean, during my spells as an ambassador in China or India or Malaysia or at the UN in New York, on each occasion I was able to organize more than one exhibition to try and help them in different ways. And I can tell you that nothing got me more mileage as a diplomat than showcasing Bangladeshi art, whether it was my own collection or whether it was the collection or the exhibitions which I was able to organize as a diplomat abroad.
That's wonderful. I think it's also a testament of your passion and an eye, and the fact that you get to know the artists so personally, that you can speak so eloquently about the artists who've inspired you, and therefore bring them out into the world. So in a sense, you, through your publications, through your exhibitions, have also served as an ad hoc curator. And we will certainly speak to Deepak in a moment about, from his perspective in France, living in France, about putting together a show, one of the biggest shows in Europe in 2005. While there have been many survey shows of Indian art, I think that the year 2005 was when things started to really crystallize. There was the Edge of Desire show, which took place in going from Asia Society and around the world. And that was also, I think, when you started to see contemporary Indian artists being shown in places like the Venice Biennale. But I think I'd like you to speak a bit more about the Indian Summer Show, because what I've noticed is that every summer, every museum and institutional show afterwards has taken elements of the one that you put up, and I'll put my market hat on, but from our perspective, it's been a boon to us because we've seen many of the artists that you've curated into your shows have really gone on to have successful careers in terms of getting more international collectors, as well as getting higher sales. So if you could speak a little bit about the circumstances for the types of shows that you've put up and the reception you've received in Europe.
Thank you, Andy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. I just want to say that Indian Summer, which is the show I curated in 2005, started off really as an exercise in pedagogy, really, because Indian art was not known in Europe and not in France. Of course, the later repercussions, including the success that some artists encountered, came much later. But the context for that show is important to know, because it was at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, which had, over the years, has been interested in showing emerging scenes, international scenes in France. And the important thing is that the École des Beaux-Arts is not a museum, and it's not a private foundation either. Of course, it's a state-run public institution. And so that gives it a different kind of profile, I think, in terms of the institutions that showcase international art. So when I started, and I did the show, of course, in collaboration with another curator who was from the school, and the collaboration of the director of the school. And we started, in fact, 3 years before 2005, and we made several trips to India to see various artists in different cities, and progressively arrived at a selection of, I think, 24 artists. And what, as I said initially, we were interested really in showing what was happening in India in the 90s. And as it happened in the 90s, it was also a time when India is sort of catapulted into the global system. So inevitably, not that there was a theme to the show, but inevitably a lot of the works we chose do deal with the whole local global axis, which was at the time a kind of leitmotif for many artists. I mean, how to make works of art which are which speak about their experiences of living in India, but which at the same time feeling free to use different kinds of media and not just painting or sculpture. So it's in a way, without it being formulated quite that way in our heads, we ended up proposing a kind of snapshot of contemporary India as it is seen through the works of very different kinds of artists. So, I mean, most of them, and the other criteria, really, so to speak, was that they all emerged in the 90s. And so that was sort of one of the ways in which we approached the